Welcome to the nuts and bolts of APA references for journal articles. In this tutorial, what I hope to show you is how to take an actual journal article that you might find online or from the shelf at the library and use the components of that journal article to cite it correctly in APA style. We hope that this information is helpful as you're writing research papers and other activities for your classes. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Here is an actual original paper, a journal article. As you can see, I've pulled this off of an online source, and so we've got the electronic version here. What we need to do first is figure out what components of this journal article go into citing APA style correctly. First things first, we need the authors. As you can see here, these are the authors listed in order for the article. And the way that we cite this in APA is we do last name, comma, first initial, middle initial. Here's an example. As you can see from this article, we've got para, G period, R period, and then the other authors of this journal article. What you want to make sure of are there are a couple of details to get just right. You want one space between the periods for the author's name. You also want a comma between each author. And finally, you see this ampersand here. Well, shouldn't you just use the word and here? That's not right. What we need you to do for APA style is use the ampersand. That's that and sign that you find over the 7 key on the keyboard. So you put that right before the last author. All right, excellent. Let's go ahead and build that reference using those names. Now there is one thing to know about when we're talking about names for an APA reference. When there are more than 7 authors, what you'll want to put are the first 6 followed by an ellipsis, that's those 3 dots, in place of the other authors, and then you keep the last author. Now notice for this paper, we don't actually have the ampersand in there when there are 7 or more authors. Okay, back to our paper. The next thing that we need is the year that this paper was published, and for this case it was 2010. Now, there are some papers that get published online first, and this is an example of one of those. So you can see here that this paper was published in December of 2009 online, but it didn't come out in print in paper form until actually 2010. And we want to use that number, that date, when it came out in paper form for our reference. Let's go ahead and add that in parentheses, followed by a period. After that, we need the title of the paper. And so this is the pilot study for this measure. And the way that we're going to type this out is we're actually going to put only the first word in capital letters. Everything else is in lowercase letters. We'll go ahead and add that to the reference, typing that out. A pilot study of the development of a measure assessing adolescent reactions to their parents in the context of emotion socialization. Again, just that first word is in capital letters. Now there are 2 exceptions that I want to talk about. The first is when the title has a proper noun inside of it. In this example, India is a proper noun, so we would keep that as an uppercase letter. So the first and any proper nouns. The second example or exception to the title rule is when there are subtitles. So for this paper that looks at maternal accuracy, the first part of the title, maternal accuracy and behavior, the M would be capitalized for maternal, and then we would also capitalize the R for relations in the subtitle. Let's return to our paper. The next thing we need is the journal name. The name of this journal is the Journal of Child and Family Studies. We can find that here at the top. Now we want to spell out the full name of the journal, which again I said was the Journal of Child and Family Studies, followed by a comma, and then also italicize it. Let's add that to our reference. Here it comes. All right. The next thing that we need is the volume that this article was published in. Now, most journals are published in yearly volumes, so each year there's a new volume. We can find that here. That's the volume number 19. We're going to also italicize that and follow it with a comma. Let's put it in there. There it is. All right. Now, you may have heard about this issue with the issue for journal articles. Now, each volume has with it a certain number of issues. So, for example, if a volume is published 4 times a year, there'll be volume 40, issue 1 through 4, for example. Now, for some older journals, each new issue started over at page 1. So we would have volume 1, issue 1, starting at page 1, volume 1, issue 2 a couple months later, also starting again at page 1. Now, if that's the way that the journal you're citing is paginated, then you would include the issue number in the reference. If, on the other hand, it's paginated by volume, that is, each new issue picks up where the last one left off, then we're going to exclude the issue number. Here's an example down here. If we look at Journal of Abnormal Child Psychology, this is volume 40, and this is the first article in that volume. It's numbered pages 1 through 5. Now, if we go over here and we look at the second issue that came out in volume 40, this is the first paper, this Association of Positive and Negative Parenting, but it's paginated starting with page 165. So it picks up right where the last issue left off. Now, currently, it's very rare to see a journal that's paginated by issue. See, I don't even have an example. Whereas most volumes are paginated by volume, which is much more common. So you would usually tend to leave out the issue number because it's paginated by volume. Okay, back to our problem at hand. We've got the volume. We don't need the issue because this journal is paginated by volume. What we need next, however, are those pages. So for this example, we've got pages 596 through 606. Now this journal puts those pages right there at the top at the first page of the article. There are other journals that don't do that, and what you would obviously need to do then is just look at the first page, what its number is, and then the last page of the article and put that in. As we include that in our reference, this is not italicized, and we include it with a hyphen, and then it followed up with a period. The final piece that we need for our journal article is this new thing called the DOI. We can find it up here. All DOIs start with the number 10 followed by a period and then a series of numbers and letters. Why do we have the DOI? Well, the DOI is called the Digital Object Identifier, and what this is this tells us the exact place on the internet that we can find the electronic version of this journal article. Now, some articles, like I mentioned, are published online ahead of when they come out in paper form. And because of that, there may be actually earlier versions. And so if you were citing an earlier version, you want your reader to be able to find out exactly which version you were citing. And so the DOI tells us that. Now we can go to this website called crossref.org, and in the middle of the first page there's this thing called the DOI Resolver. Now the DOI Resolver is a great search engine where you can put in any DOI. So let's type in that one from our study that we're citing. Then we click on the Submit button, and what happens? It takes us right to the page where we can find the online version of that journal article. So in this case, that pilot study that we were looking at. And this is the one that we're citing from the Journal of Child and Family Studies. So the DOI is a really powerful way to quickly find journal articles. And so we put that in our reference list because we want other people to find those journal articles as well. All right, let's include that into our reference. There is a certain way to do that. We put the DOI, those 3 letters, in lowercase, followed by a colon, and then those series of numbers and letters. Well, you know what? That's it. We've got our full reference starting with the name, the year, the title, the journal title, the volume, the pages, and the DOI. Well, here's a couple of resources to help you further with APA style. The Online Writing Lab at Purdue is an excellent resource that has a lot of examples that you can use for various different types of things that you might be citing. Websites, journal articles, books, those kinds of things. APAstyle.org has an online tutorial which can help you learn the basics of APA style. There's a couple of other things, including that link to crossref.org for locating DOIs. I hope that this tutorial has been helpful for you as you're learning how to cite things in APA style, and that this will be a really good, useful resource for you in the future as you write papers in APA style. Feel free to click on one of these links to learn more about APA style, or simply click on the End Show button down at the bottom to finish out this example.